NEA Big Read is a program of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with Arts Midwest. Local sponsorship is provided by the Muskogee County Friends of Libraries.
For far too long, in a male-dominated world, females were relegated to their place. And in their place, the female subject was often treated as insignificant compared to her male counterparts. As portrayed in ancient Greek literature, Circe experienced shame, gender bias, and disempowerment. However, as a female portrayed in contemporary author Madeline Miller's book, Circe not only finds her voice, but is the center of an adventurous and empowering narrative. The subjects highlighted throughout this display represent women like Madeline Miller's Circe, who have championed their way into owning and using their own voices and truly taking charge of their lives. In Professor Ellen Carroll Dubois' book, Suffrage, she delivers a comprehensive account of the scope of the movement to win the vote for women, through portraits of bold leaders and devoted activists. The book is a true celebration of women's long road to becoming enfranchised. It was published in 2020 to honor the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment of the Constitution. While Circe was banished into isolation, some women intentionally go there. They opt to remain single, with little to no concern about any remaining stigma associated with the status of being single. They choose to live alone and like it. The Extra Woman, by Joanna Skutz, can be viewed as a cultural history of women opting to live the solo life. The Notorious RBG. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg represents a world in which options for women were slowly expanding. From her experiences of being marginalized in the classroom and discriminated against in the legal world dominated by men, RBG became a loud, clear voice for her own cause and against discrimination and gender inequality. As if to make the point, she titles her book, In My Own Words. In the same stratosphere of law walks the now Vice President, Kamala Harris, whose immigrant parents met as activists in the civil rights movement as grad students at Berkeley. Kamala Harris continues to break down barriers, not only as the United States' first ever female vice president, but the first African American and the first Asian American vice president. She spoke for many women and girls when she declared, "I may be the first, but I won't be the last." As the only woman in U.S. history to serve as the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi is known for using her voice to vociferously speak her truth. Widely regarded as the master of the legislative process, Nancy Pelosi's own words best tell what drives her. "I really want women to know their power, to value their experience, to understand that nothing has been more wholesome in the political process than the increased involvement of women." The title, Too Heavy a Load, Black Women in Defense of Themselves, addresses how women stood up for themselves and their interests. From Ida B. Wells, who chronicled and spoke out against the horrors of lynching, to Anita Hill, a forerunner in the Me Too movement. Professor Deborah Gray White, a leading voice in gender studies, movingly lays out for the reader the painful historical backdrop against which these courageous women stood their ground to fight for their rights. Black Panther Assata Shakur, aka Joanne Chesimard, delivers an intensely personal and political autobiography that recounts the experiences that led her to a life of activism and portrays the strengths, weaknesses, and eventual demise of the Black and white revolutionary groups at the hand of government officials. Named one of the best books of the year in 2020, The Undocumented Americans is the story of one woman who uses her own name and her own voice to come out from the shadows to tell the story of being undocumented and living in the United States. Carla Gomejo Villavicencio offers readers the rare insight into not only her own story, but the story of countless other voiceless, invisible persons living undocumented in the United States. Invisible No More is a timely examination of how Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color experience racial profiling, police brutality, and immigration enforcement. by placing the individual stories of Sandra Bland, Rukia Boyd, Dajeria Becton, Monica Jones, and Maya Hall in the broader context of the twin epidemics of police violence and mass incarceration, Andrea Ritchie documents the evolution of movements centered around women's experiences of policing. Throughout history, women have continually proven that they can disfuse stereotypes and become beacons of inspiration in a male-dominated world. Their courage and tenacity have evolved the perspective of women and their merit. Hillary and Chelsea Clinton have compiled just a few examples of the many gutsy women whom have proven their courage and resilience. In her book, This Will Be My Undoing, Morgan Jerkins becomes both narrator and subject to expose the social, cultural, and historical story of Black female oppression that influences the Black community as well as the white, male-dominated world at large. Michelle Obama has established herself as one of the most iconic and compelling women of our era. The former First Lady of the United States helped create a most welcoming and inclusive White House, while also being a powerful advocate for women and girls around the world. Her memoir, Becoming, is a deeply personal reckoning of a woman of soul and substance who has steadily defied expectations, and whose story inspires us to do the same. Into the Breach is a comprehensive and moving record of American women's participation in World War I, when for the first time, women served in ways that went beyond the traditional. Deriving on memoirs, diaries, novels, and personal papers, the authors chronicle the experiences of scholars, entertainers, journalists, the handful of courageous Black women who were with the YMCA, and pacifists who worked energetically, all to end the war. In the world of academia, women have too often been overlooked regarding their impressive contributions to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Across the generations, even when faced with less than perfect circumstances, women geniuses have created brilliant and original work. These are just a few examples of the many inspiring women and their critical impacts on research and education. In her book, The Genius of Women, Janice Kaplan retells the accounts of many impressive women and how they ignored obstacles and broke down seemingly unshakable barriers. These women offer a clear blueprint to everyone who wants to find her own path and move forward with passion. From small towns to elite colleges, more than 10,000 women were recruited by the U.S. Army and Navy to serve as code breakers during World War II. Their efforts towards learning the meticulous work of code breaking helped shorten the war, saved countless lives, and gave these women access to careers previously denied to them. A strict vow of secrecy nearly erased their efforts from history. But now, through research and interviews with surviving code girls, author Liza Mundy provides a riveting story of American courage, service, and scientific accomplishment. From body lotion to tonic water, the popular new element radium made headlines across the nation as the fresh face of beauty and wonder drug for medical needs. Meanwhile, hundreds of women worked incessantly amidst the glowing dust of the radium dial factories. In one of the biggest scandals of America's early 20th century, these factory workers embroil in a groundbreaking battle for workers' rights. The Radium Girls fully illuminates the inspiring young women exposed to this wonder substance of radium and their awe-inspiring strength in the face of almost impossible circumstances. Their vigor led to life-changing regulations, research into nuclear bombing, and ultimately saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, Katherine Johnson, and Christine Darden. These are the four mathematicians who participated in one of NASA's greatest successes, providing the calculations for America's first journeys to space. During a time in America where being Black and being a woman limited what they could do, they persisted and changed the world. Margot Lee Shetterly shares the story of four African-American NASA mathematicians known as colored computers and how they overcame gender and racial barriers in advanced engineering careers. Female visionaries have always been at the vanguard of technology and innovation. In a world where tech companies are still male-dominated, broadband shines a light on the bright minds history forgot. Meet lady geniuses like Ada Lovelace, who wrote the algorithm for a computing machine in the 1800s, Grace Hopper, the mathematician who democratized computing after World War II, and Elizabeth Jake Fendler, the information scientist who operated the Network Information Center that would evolve into the Internet. Recruited from all over the world, these are the little-known female scientists who worked in the Manhattan Project and were critical to the invention of the atomic bomb during World War II. Atomic Women introduces the critical steps taken towards the creation of a successful nuclear bomb, but also analyzes the moral implications of such an invention. The youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history, Amanda Gorman is an award-winning writer and a cum laude graduate of Harvard University. On January 20th, 2021, Gorman read her original poem, The Hill We Climb, at President Joe Biden's inauguration. She is a committed advocate for the environment, racial equality, and gender justice. In 2017, Gorman was appointed the first ever National Youth Poet Laureate. The Hill We Climb and Other Poems is the debut poetry collection on hope and healing. Amanda Gorman offers an energizing and unforgettable new voice in American poetry. As old as history itself, Circe and many other women have been represented as a minor character in someone else's story. But as for a powerful witch and a Greek goddess, it has been long overdue for a restoration to her disposition. Madeline Miller's dynamic revision of Circe welcomes modern women independency in a telling of her own story. This tale, as well as the lives of all these women, should deliver inspiration to embrace oneself and to explore and overcome life's obstacles.